More numbers. The majority of Americans showing how people feel. 52% say they disapprove of President Trump's handling of the coronavirus pandemic. According to the latest NBC News Wall Street Journal poll, that number is up 1 point since last month. 44% say they approve. 65% said that Trump did not take the coronavirus threat seriously enough at the beginning. 32% believe that he did, and 36% say they trust the president's opinion of the coronavirus. That's compared to 66% who say they trust their state's governor, and 60% say they trust Dr. Anthony Fauci. That same poll also shows the apparent Democratic nominee, Joe Biden, up 7 points over the president, 49% to 42%. This is at this point, Joe, you know, what you see here is Joe Biden is careful with his words. You see some of the latest ads that have been rolled out, which are really strong, which show clearly that Joe Biden saw this coming. Right. He was writing about this in USA Today in January. He was concerned. Yeah. He saw it coming like a steamroller coming in the direction of the United States. He was concerned. Yeah. He called on the White House, the president, the administration to take it seriously. They did not. So this is plain and simple.
So this is what I've been saying. Donald Trump needs to stop doing these nightly press conferences, not only for the safety and the health of the American people, but also for his own political fortunes, because every night he goes out and damages himself by he's being a day trader. He just shoots from the hip, says whatever he's thinking about saying at the top. You see him get angry if anyone brings up facts that get in the way of him looking good. And I talked earlier about the emperor's clothes falling off every time he gets up there, but it truly is like a child angry that things aren't going his way. It's not good for him to show that to the American people. He's doing something else, too. It's like a guy that is being told by his lawyer, don't talk, whatever you say, it's going to be used against you, whether it's a civil or a criminal, okay? So just don't talk. Yeah. Make sure you measure every word. Because what happens is Donald Trump goes out and he rambles. He says stupid things. He says things that are lies. And all he does is he gives Joe Biden's campaign, he gives Democrats just 2.5 hours of material every night to fact check against all the things that they already have on tape from January and February. And you are right about Joe Biden. Joe Biden in January was saying that Donald Trump needed to get more serious about this. In January, he was saying that Donald Trump needed to let scientists and doctors run this operation and do the talking. In January, he warned what was coming. Well, Donald Trump wasted all of February, and as we could look at the recount calendar, you see that even near the end of February, a whole month went by, Donald Trump was still saying that this was magically going to go away and that it was a hoax being drummed up by the media. So, you know, John Heilemann, I'm going to go back to one of my pet peeves. I have just a few, John, you know that. But one of them is this whole Donald Trump as political Superman. There is nothing that can stop Donald Trump, and there's weeping and gnashing of teeth and putting sackcloth and ashes on people who are just walking around aimlessly saying, how can he get away with this? And what I say is he gets away with nothing. There's a reason why he doesn't get to 50%. There's a reason why he lost Virginia in 2017. There's a reason why all of those women in Northern Virginia were standing in the rain for hours saying, we're not going anywhere. We're voting to send a message to Donald Trump. It's why in 2018, when everybody was freaking out about all of his stupid stories about leprosy or whatever he said was coming in these caravans, and why he was sending U.S. troops shamefully down to the border during the holidays. Oh, how can he get away with it? He didn't. Yeah. The biggest historical landslide ever in the House of Representatives in 2018. And now you look at these numbers, it seems that most Americans see what we see. 65% of Americans, let me say this again, 65% of Americans, almost 2 out of 3 Americans saying they do not trust what Donald Trump is telling them, and 65% saying that he wasn't ready, that he was ill prepared, he did not take this threat seriously enough. Less than 1 out of 3 thinks he took the threat seriously enough. I mean, those are the hardcore tinfoil hat wearing, like, Trumpies. And then, do you trust your governor more, or do you trust the president more? As he's attacking governors, 66% say they trust their governors more. 20% say they trust Trump more. Now look at Fauci. Fire Fauci, fire. Yeah, that chant, that's really awesome. And boy, we should all freak out about that, because
so you're talking about
that's 8% of Americans don't trust Fauci. Less than 1 in 10 Americans. Again, this is where media really sends, I think, a twisted and warped view of America, because those people should not even be there. 8% of the population. And if that, in fact, is people are going to show, they can say, well, that's less than 1 in 10 Americans who feel that way. Again, I just think the way that this is being covered right now suggests that Donald Trump somehow is getting away with all of these lies. Somehow is getting away with all the shift blaming. It's just not happening if you look at these polls.
Right. So, Joe, the president has not been on a ballot for now 3.5 years. And the story of the Trump administration in those 3.5 years, when Donald Trump's name has never been directly on a ballot anywhere, there have been a lot of elections. There have been congressional elections. There have been midterm elections, off-year elections. Most recently up in Wisconsin, we had elections. We had a Democratic primary, and we had an election for the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Local elections, by-elections, all kinds of elections. The Republican Party in those elections over the last 3.5 years has gotten its clock cleaned systematically. And I think everyone in politics understands that although Donald Trump's name has never been on the ballot directly, his name has been on the ballot in some sense in all of those elections, because he's the dominant force in American politics. So every one of these elections is in some sense a referendum on Trump. He makes himself directly part of many of those elections, as we saw in that Wisconsin Supreme Court seat that Friday before, when he said, they're trying to cancel the election because I put out an endorsement I endorsed this man very strongly on social media, and his polls went through the roof within, he was claiming that his polls had gone up within hours of when Trump had endorsed him. Right. So you've got, 3.5 years of Trump paying a political price, and the Republican Party paying a political price. And now you look at the polling, and again, there's a lot of months between now and November. We're in an unprecedented situation. There's a lot of politics to play, and I think people should understand that this is a very dynamic, situation that's very dynamic and very much in flux. But right now, on the basis of the numbers that we see, it's clear that just as the Republican Party has lost almost every ballot test for the last 3.5 years, Donald Trump is losing the battle for public opinion right now on the handling of this virus. And you can see it not just in those direct approval numbers and his overall approval number, the approval number on how he's handling the virus, but you see the fact that right now, it's also the case that in that most recent Pew poll, it's about 2/3 of the country thinks the greater risk right now is to reopen the economy too soon, as opposed to the 1/3 of the country that thinks the greater risk is to keep the lockdown orders in place and risk the economy. So again, Trump's all in a rush to reopen. The country doesn't want to reopen right now. 2/3 of the country says that's the risky course. Trump's losing that argument too. So I think you're right. I mean, again, lots to play for here, but Trump's losing right now, and the party has lost with him at its head a lot over the last 3.5 years.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.